The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving the small town bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. The familiar hum of conversation and the clinking of dishes filled the local diner, where Tom Sarge Wallace sat in his usual booth near the window. A steaming cup of black coffee rested in front of him, untouched as he gazed out into the darkened street. The retired Marine Corps veteran had grown accustomed to these quiet evenings, finding solace in the simplicity of small-town life after decades of service in the military. Tom was known around town as a kind, unassuming man. Though his broad shoulders and weathered face hinted at his past, he rarely spoke of his time in the Marines. He had traded his uniform for a peaceful life, spending his days tending to his garden and his nights savoring moments like this. Just him, his coffee, and the gentle hum of the diner. That peace shattered when the low rumble of motorcycles grew louder, breaking the stillness of the night. Heads turned toward the windows as a group of bikers, clad in leather jackets emblazoned with the logo of the Iron Fangs, rolled into the parking lot. Their arrival brought an edge of tension that wasn't common in the little diner. The Iron Fangs were notorious for causing trouble, and their reputation had made its way even to this quiet town. The bikers barged into the diner, their laughter and heavy boots disrupting the calm. At their head was Rex Crusher Malone, a towering man with a crooked grin that seemed to promise trouble. As the gang spread out, their eyes fell on Tom, sitting alone in his booth. To them, he looked like an easy target, just an old man nursing a coffee, minding his business. Rex swaggered over to Tom's table, leaning down with a sneer. Well, what do we have here?" he drawled. "You lost, old-timer? This ain't the nursing home." The gang roared with laughter, emboldened by their leader's mockery. Tom glanced up from his coffee, his expression calm, his steel-gray eyes meeting Rex's without flinching. He didn't say a word, but something in his gaze gave Rex pause, just for a moment. "Not much of a talker, huh?" Rex said, grabbing Tom's hat off the table and tossing it to one of his men. "Let's see how much you like losing something important." As the bikers laughed and jeered, Tom reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. His voice was calm, measured. "I think it's time I made a call," he said, his fingers pressing a number he hadn't dialed in years. "You boys might want to stick around." Rex snorted, leaning back and crossing his arms. "Oh, we'll stick around, old man," he sneered. "Let's see who's coming to save you." The bikers jeered, their laughter echoing through the diner. Tom's fingers moved deliberately as he completed the call. "Hey, it's Sarge," he said simply, his voice calm but firm. "Got a situation here. Bring the crew." He hung up without another word, placing the phone back on the table. Rex grabbed a chair and spun it around, straddling it backward as he sat across from Tom. "You think a call's gonna scare us? Newsflash, Grandpa. This is our town now." Tom didn't flinch. He took a slow sip of his coffee, his calm gaze locked on Rex. "You've made a mistake," he said quietly, "and you're not gonna like how it ends." Rex chuckled, clearly amused. "Oh yeah? What are you gonna do? Tell me war stories until I fall asleep?" Tom said nothing, his silence more unnerving than any threat. The diner's patrons, sensing the tension, huddled together in whispered conversations. The owner, a middle-aged woman named Marge, shot Tom a worried glance, but he gave her a small nod as if to say, "Don't worry." Time ticks on. The bikers settled in, ordering drinks and food like they owned the place. They continued their taunts, occasionally throwing jabs at Tom or the other diners. Rex was the loudest of them all, using every opportunity to assert his dominance. Tom remained stoic, seemingly unaffected by the commotion, but inside, his mind was sharp and focused, every second bringing him closer to the moment when the tables would turn. "Why don't you just leave?" one of the bikers asked, smirking. "Save yourself the embarrassment." Tom's lips curled into a faint smile. "Because I'm waiting." "For what?" Rex demanded. Tom leaned back, his hands resting calmly on the table. "You'll see." The arrival. The low rumble of motorcycles outside interrupted the gang's laughter. At first, the bikers thought nothing of it, until the sound grew louder, more distinct. Rex's smile faltered as he turned to the window. A line of motorcycles pulled into the parking lot, their headlights piercing the darkness. The riders dismounted, their movements fluid and precise. They weren't just another gang. They carried themselves with purpose, their leather jackets bearing the insignia of a Marine Corps Veterans Club. These weren't drifters or petty criminals. These were men who knew how to handle themselves. Rex's bravado wavered as the veterans entered the diner, their presence commanding instant respect. At their head was Frank Bulldog Harris, a burly man with a grizzled beard and an air of authority. He spotted Tom and grinned. "Sarge," he said, his voice booming. "You rang?" Tom nodded. "Thanks for coming." Bulldog turned to Rex, his grin vanishing. "You boys causing trouble for my friend here?" Rex stood, trying to recover his swagger. "We're just having a little fun. No need to get all worked up." Bulldog stepped closer, his massive frame towering over Rex. "Here's the thing," he said, his tone sharp. "Sarge doesn't call unless it's serious, so if he called us, it means you've crossed a line." Rex glanced around nervously, realizing he and his gang were now outnumbered. His men shifted uneasily, their earlier confidence replaced by uncertainty. The confrontation. The tension in the diner was palpable as the two groups faced off. Tom remained seated, his calm demeanor unchanged as he let his brothers in arms handle the situation. The bikers, so loud and brash before, now looked like cornered animals. "You've been running your mouths all night," Bulldog said, his voice steady but firm, "picking on people who didn't ask for trouble. But now you've got trouble, and it's staring you in the face." Rex tried to regain control. "We don't want any problems, all right? We'll leave." Bulldog's gaze hardened. "It's too late for that. You disrespected a Marine and harassed a town full of good people. You don't just walk away from that." One of the younger bikers stepped forward, his hand hovering near his pocket. Before he could move, one of the veterans, Jack Hawk Daniels, stepped in, his voice cold. "Don't even think about it." The biker froze, his hand retreating as he realized how outmatched they were. The veterans weren't just intimidating, they were organized, their every move deliberate and calculated. A lesson in respect. Rex raised his hands, his tone shifting to one of forced humility. "All right, we get it. We'll go. No hard feelings, yeah?" Bulldog smirked, but there was no warmth in it. "Hard feelings? You're lucky Sarge is the patient type. If it were up to me, you'd be leaving here on foot." Tom finally spoke, his voice calm but resolute. "Apologize. To me, to Marge, to everyone here." Rex hesitated, his pride warring with his fear, but one look at the stony faces of the veterans told him he had no choice. All right, he muttered, turning to Marge. "I'm sorry." "And the rest?" Tom prompted, his gaze unwavering. Rex sighed, his shoulders slumping. "I'm sorry," he said louder, addressing the entire diner. "It won't happen again." Tom nodded. "Good. Now get out of here." The departure. The bikers shuffled out of the diner, their tails between their legs. The veterans followed them to the parking lot, ensuring they mounted their motorcycles and left without further incident. The roar of engines faded into the distance, leaving the town in peace once more. Bulldog turned to Tom, clapping him on the shoulder. "Always the quiet ones, huh, Sarge?" Tom chuckled. They needed to learn a lesson. You boys just helped drive it home. As the last echoes of the bikers' engines faded into the night, the tension in the diner finally began to dissipate. The patrons, who had been silently watching the confrontation unfold, erupted into murmured conversations. Some clapped softly, their relief evident, while others approached Tom and his Marine brothers with gratitude. Marge, the diner's owner, walked over to Tom, her hands still trembling slightly from the ordeal. "Thank you, Sarge," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "I didn't know what we were going to do. They've been terrorizing us for weeks." Tom gave her a small, reassuring smile. "They won't be back," he said simply, his words carrying the weight of certainty. He turned to his friends, nodding toward Marge. "Let's not leave without settling the bill, gentlemen." Bulldog chuckled, pulling a few bills from his wallet and placing them on the counter. "Sarge, you're the only guy I know who calls in reinforcements and still worries about paying for coffee." The veterans laughed, their camaraderie a sharp contrast to the tension that had filled the room just moments ago. It was a sound that put the diner's patrons at ease, a reminder that strength could also bring peace. A grateful town. As the veterans prepared to leave, several of the diner's regulars approached Tom, offering handshakes and heartfelt thanks. Even the normally reserved teenagers at the corner table came over, their eyes wide with admiration. "You're a hero, Mr. Wallace," one of them said, their voice tinged with awe. Tom shook his head. I'm no hero, just a man who knows when something needs to be done. The group of veterans filed out of the diner and into the parking lot, where their motorcycles gleamed under the streetlights. Before mounting their bikes, Bulldog turned to Tom, a serious expression replacing his usual grin. You ever need us again, Sarge? You know we'll come running. Tom nodded, his gaze steady. And you know I'd do the same. With a roar of engines, the veterans rode off into the night, their presence as commanding in departure as it had been upon arrival. Tom stood for a moment, watching them disappear down the road before heading back inside. A quiet victory. Tom returned to his booth, where his coffee had gone cold. Marge brought over a fresh cup, this time on the house. You deserve this one, she said with a smile. As Tom took a sip, he glanced around the diner. The atmosphere had shifted. The tension was gone, replaced with a sense of safety and camaraderie. He tipped his hat to Marge, savoring the peace he'd helped restore. For Tom, it wasn't about glory or recognition. It was about doing what was right and standing by the values he had upheld his entire life. Quietly, he reflected on the bond he shared with his brothers in arms, a bond that, even after years apart, remained unbreakable. In the stillness of the night, Tom finished his coffee, knowing he'd be ready for whatever came next.